Shalom. Now, that is a word that is very much needed in the lives of people today. It not only means peace, it also means wholesomeness, completeness, well-being, etc. Living in the present world, which is so chaotic, that seems to be topsy-turvy, no one can even imagine what would happen next, and that brings various kinds of hindrances, even planning anything, whether it's children's education, starting a new venture, they don't know what is in store. Now, that is the state the world is in. Therefore, many would like to know whether there is any source that could guide them, for them to have some idea as to what would happen next. And also there is lot of misinformation, as well as some people sensationalizing things for various reasons. The good news is there is a source, but how reliable that is another question. The proof of the pudding is in its eating. That is a statement that says you only can know the truthfulness by testing what has already been stated. Now, in this source, what has been happening up to the present times have been accurately predicted. That means it can be trusted. Now, we have to understand one thing. People living in today's world are used to various words which did not exist at the time these predictions were made. For example, even if 100 years back someone predicted certain things, he or she would not have had present day's terminology. Even Einstein would not have been able to predict what would be happening today if we had any idea using modern words that we are familiar with. Therefore, when we look at these predictions, we have to examine them in today's context. They have been telling things the way they could communicate using the words they were familiar with. By now, some of you would have even guessed about the source I am talking about, which is the Bible. Sadly, many hearing that word could close their minds, thinking, oh, that's a religious book, that's an ancient book, which is far from the truth. The word religion does not appear in the Bible at all, not in the original languages. Even in the translations in English, what are generally called Old Testament scriptures, that section does not have the word religion. Even that term Old Testament scriptures is a misnomer, which is a different subject altogether. Even in what is called New Testament scriptures, though in English you get the word religion in certain places, in the original, in Greek, it is not religion. It's devotion as well as piety, and in one instance even superstition has been translated as religion. And in all the other languages, the word religion is not there in those places. Now, that is just to show that it is not a religious book. And what the Bible shows is God is making covenants. Now, in religions, there are no covenants. Covenants are made between two living beings or individuals. The greatest covenant human beings can make is the marriage covenant between a man and a woman. That is the highest form of covenant. So, in covenants, there are conditions laid down, instructions given. That is what the Bible is all about. God making covenants with us. And the fact also is, it is not an ancient book. It predicts what is happening now, and it also contains what would happen 1,000 years hence. So, it is more modern than all of us. What would be the condition of this world 1,000 years later is also mentioned in Isaiah 11 as well as in the concluding chapters of the book of Revelation, which is the last book in the Bible. So, just to show, it is not an ancient book, though it was written long time back. Towards the end of this series, we will have a look at the description given in the new age, next age, not the new age that people talk about, but what would happen in a very short time, and then how a new era would begin. There is also another statement, ancient statement, that says the biggest obstruction for knowing the truth is having preconceived ideas. So, let us put all preconceived ideas aside, me included, because the more I study this book called the Bible, the more I realize how much I don't know. I have been in the ministry for more than 40 years. Even what I shared 10 years back is not what I am sharing in the present times. So, that is how new this book is. And as God says in Isaiah 46:10, only He knows the end from the beginning. So, let us realize we don't know that much. That is why many people are apprehensive as to what would happen, and many would not even want to start on a new venture. 2000 years back, as recorded in the book of Luke, chapter 21, Christ said this: there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, waves and the sea roaring. Men's hearts will fail looking at things that are coming upon the earth. That fits the present state of the world quite well. Right? Now, the other thing is, in the Bible there are symbols which many people interpret in many ways. But the fact is, those symbols are explained in the Bible itself in some other places. So, when we look at the scriptures, we need to have an idea about the overall picture given in the Bible. It's something like this: a person may have a few pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Just because a couple of them seem to fit, by fitting them you may not get the correct picture. For that, you must have an idea what the cover of the box shows, the full picture that is shown there. Then you will be able to fit the correct pieces together. A person who has not seen the picture given on the front of the box will never be able to fit the pieces together properly. So, that is one part. Second thing is, throughout the Bible, various themes run from beginning to end. It is like a rope made out of strands of many colors. A purple strand run from beginning to end purple. It doesn't turn red or brown in the middle. So, various themes about various topics mentioned in the Bible like faith, love, forgiveness, rebellion, all those, they flow beautifully from beginning to end. So, that way we can generally have a proper understanding which enables us to properly interpret the symbols given. That is one. But the other thing is this: living in present times, there are certain symbols, though they may not be symbols as such, we can identify. I will give you a simple example. How would you think a person living 2600 years back would describe a modern day highway along which many vehicles travel in the night? A person who has never seen a motor vehicle, who has never seen highways, how would he describe vehicles speeding along a superhighway? A person called Nahum, living 2600 years back, in chapter 2 says this: chariots speed through the street. They jostle in broad streets. They are like lamps, and they run at the speed of lightning. Now, he did not have the term motor vehicles. Only one he knew were chariots. They were the ones he knew. He also knew carriages, but carriages were slow compared to horse-driven chariots. So, to describe motor vehicles, he says chariots. Romans are reputed to have constructed good roads during that time. But this was 500 years even before the Roman Empire came into existence. He would have only seen what we call lanes. For him, a broad way really would have looked like a very broad road. And he never knew the term headlamps. So, he says lamps. And the speed of those vehicles would have seemed like lightning to him. So, you get the idea? So, we can identify what he described. The final book of the Bible, the book authored by a person in English called John. He was an uneducated fisherman, and he saw the present world. He saw laptops, Android phones, TV screens, digital screens, and he described what he saw, but he did not have the words that I just mentioned. A simple example: in the 11th chapter of the book of Revelation, there is this verse that says that 2 witnesses preaching the word of God in Jerusalem will be killed by the coming world ruler. And then he goes on to say, their bodies will lie on the streets of Jerusalem, and people of every language, every ethnicity, in every country will see their bodies lying on those streets. Now, that is a verse that was used by those who were against the Bible to ridicule the Bible. They said, we cannot see what is there on the next road or adjoining road without going there. So, how can people the world over see two bodies or their pieces, corpses lying on the streets of Jerusalem? But today, over mass media, the whole world will be able to see. Poor John did not have the words media, mass media, social media, anything like that. So, you see friends, we can clearly identify what those people living thousands of years back have stated. What is happening in the world and where is it heading? That is our topic for this. We have to focus also on the words that are written in the Bible. Another person who lived at the time of Nahum was called Habakkuk. In the very first chapter, God speaks through him and says, "Watch the nations. I will do something in your days that you will not believe even if you are told." Right? Now, let us focus on the words. God does not say, "Have you heard what I am doing in the nations?" Or "Have you read about what I am doing in the nations?" Heard, okay, some rumor coming, or after Marconi even radio announcements. If God said, "Have you read?" okay, it's a printed media. God does not use the words, "Have you heard?" or "Have you read about?" He says, "Watch the nations." Now, how could people living in the past watch the nations? They could not do so until the TV was invented somewhere in 1950s. But today, we all can watch what is happening the world over seated in our sitting room. So, he is speaking to us because we are the only ones who can watch. So, that is just by way of an introduction, just to show this source is totally reliable. If people living in the past could so clearly state with the limited vocabularies they had what we can identify easily, then anyone, even with a little bit of common sense, would realize, yes, it is good to study and see what this source talks about. Most of the things that are happening are stated in many places in the Bible, but let's focus our attention upon the last book in the Bible, because it has 404 verses. All of them refer back to over 800 other statements in what I would like to call pre-Christ scriptures, which is far better than calling Old Testament scriptures. Pre-Christ scriptures contain more about what is happening now, and in the book of Revelation, there seem to be channeled into those 404 verses. Now, when we associate with someone, we begin to get an understanding as to how that person works, likes, dislikes, the way the person does things. All those come with some kind of intimacy. Now, in the Bible, especially in the final book, things are recorded, but they are in a cyclical format, not a rectilinear format. Now, in creation also we can see this cyclical feature. For example, the leaves fall from the trees, they are eaten by various animals, their excreta become manure, absorbed into the tree through the roots. And again flowers come, leaves come, fruits come, and this cycle goes on. Originally God told Adam and Eve, the first couple, to eat only plants and fruits. That was God's intention right at the beginning. The food is manufactured, any botanist will say, in the leaves of the trees. And when that process called photosynthesis takes place, water vapor comes out of the leaves, they float up, get condensed, become clouds and fall onto the earth as rain. Then the roots of the trees absorb that water and through a process called osmosis sends it up. And again they go up to the leaves and the cycle continues. Sadly, because of the construction of various buildings, cities, etc., trees are cut. So, the cycle is broken. Therefore, you get droughts. And also when we inhale, our lungs get the oxygen, and when we exhale, we put out carbon dioxide. The leaves during the process of photosynthesis take in the carbon dioxide and release oxygen. So, the balance in the atmosphere where these gases are concerned is maintained. So, all those things show that this creation has been marvelously designed, but this is a cyclical thing. Now, that is what is recorded also in the book of Ecclesiastes. What is happening now has happened before. What is taking place now could be identified what has taken place earlier. There is nothing new under the sun. That also shows that everything is cyclical. Right. Now, the most important chapters in the book of Revelation are the first 3 chapters, especially chapters 2 and 3, which we will touch briefly towards the end of this clip. Then chapter 4 verse 1 starts with the 2 words, after this. So, that means after the time this person called John was in the place called Isle of Patmos. He was banished there during the time of Caesar Domitian, and that is where he received visions and various other revelations. He was taken from the place also at various times that are described in the Bible. He was taken to mountains, he was taken to deserts and places like that. The first thing we have to understand is the descriptions given of the visions he had from chapter 4 verse 1 onwards are things that were to take place after the time period John was in the Isle of Patmos. Not what happened during Adam and Eve's time, not even what happened during Christ's time. That is very important for us to understand, because some of the things that are recorded in chapter 12, etc., some people are interpreted as if things that happened at the beginning or at the time of Christ. No. It clearly states after this, meta tota in Greek, after this. So, that is the first thing we have to keep in mind. Now, can you imagine without even a time machine, he was taken to our present times. As I told you earlier, he saw the present world. And not only that, he was taken up to heaven also. Because chapter 4 verse 1 says, after this I heard a voice saying, come up here. And he was taken to heaven. And in heaven, he saw the throne of God, and everything that is described there, he says like this, like this, like this, because that was the maximum he could say. Even when he had the vision of the glorified Christ, he says his face was shining like the sun. The brightest thing that we can see in this creation is the sun, but the face of Christ was even brighter than the sun. So he says his face was shining like the sun. So his hair was like white like the wool, and his feet were like bronze burnt, like, always like, because it was beyond that. So that is another thing we have to keep in mind when we read the book of Revelations. So he was taken to mountains, valleys, deserts, projected into our time, as well as taken to heaven. And in heaven, he saw many things. One of the things he saw was this scroll that had 7 seals. Now, in ancient Israel and also in the Middle East, when certain agreements were made, they were written on scrolls. And this scroll that John saw was written both inside and out and covered with 7 seals. So when those agreements were made, they were sealed, and people who had certain qualifications only could open those seals. So when he looked at the scroll and saw the seals, and it was quite evident there was no one qualified to open those seals. And this is in heaven, so nothing unlawful or unfair or unjust can happen there. Therefore, he started to cry. And in heaven, he saw so many things. He saw 4 beings and also 24 elders, as he states. And one of them said, "Don't cry, there's someone who is qualified." And he saw a lamb that looked like it had been slain, and that he knew was a symbolization of Christ. In heaven, Christ is not like a lamb at all, no, right? He's like, as John describes in the very first chapter, with that face that is brighter than the sun. And he started to break open the seals. And it says, when he opened the first seal, he heard a voice that says, "Come and see." And some translations don't have the word "see." In original, it is there, "Come and see." And he looked, and there was this person on a white horse having a crown. It's not a crown actually, a wreath, a Stephanos, not a diadem. In Greek, diadem is crown, like the crowns that you see on kings. And this was a wreath, like when you receive at the end of an event, a tournament, a race. Maybe those who have seen ancient Olympics, or at least a film like Ben-Hur, would have seen a wreath was given that was put on the person who won the race. So it was something like that, not really a crown, a wreath like that, on a white horse, having a bow and riding out. So there are certain colors and symbols that are constant throughout the scriptures. One is the color white. Even today we know it depicts peace. And having that wreath looks that he is a champ. And a bow, but no arrows. Now, after the flood, when God appeared to Noah after he told Noah to come out of the ark. When Noah offered the sacrifice, God made a covenant with Noah and said he will never again destroy the whole world with a flood. And for that he said, I will put my bow in the clouds, which we call the rainbow. The bow is a symbolization of the covenant. So, white color, so it's a covenant of peace. 2500 years back, about 500 years before John was in the Isle of Patmos, there lived a wise man in modern day Iraq, at that time called Babylon. His name was Daniel. He was a prince. He was from the princely royal tribe of David in Israel, Judah. And he also had visions. And in chapter 9, verse 27, he says, a person is coming that will confirm a covenant of peace for 7 years. So, these two complement each other. Now, a lot of people are talking about this coming world ruler. But before that, something else has to happen. Now, that is what most people have overlooked. So, in this clip from here onwards, we are going to look at what those people have overlooked. In Daniel chapter 7, verses 7 and 8, he sees this beast. He sees from verse 2 onwards, he sees 4 beasts, and everyone knows the beasts symbolize the coming world powers coming at the time of Daniel. And he himself gives the interpretation about the first one, which was the Babylonian kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar at the time. Then the next one was Medo-Persian, then a tiger or leopard, just like Alexander the Great conquered the then world, at least that area, in double quick time. So, a leopard. Then finally, another beast with iron teeth. Romans were the first to really use iron shields and various other weaponry. So, everyone can identify those 4 empires. Then as he was watching, this beast all of a sudden had 10 horns. 3 of them were taken out. For another horn with eyes and a mouth to come up, that spoke boastful or blasphemous words. Now, he saw this vision. Then there were the angels there. So, he approached an angel and he asked an angel for the interpretation. Verse 23 onwards state the explanation given by the angel, who says, an empire with 10 kings or rulers would arise that will devour the whole earth. So far, no empire had controlled the whole earth. Not the Roman Empire, not the British Empire. No empire had conquered the whole earth. So, it is very clear this is a global empire. And looking at today's world, World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, etc., talk about various areas that need to be there for this global empire to function properly. One thing is economy. That is why the World Economic Forum, not an empire's economic forum, not a country's economic forum, not a continent's economic forum, the World Economic Forum, that is for the whole world. And it will have a single currency, not paper money, digital. We all can see it's working out towards that. So, one type of currency, one type of economy, and there will be only one type of rulership. Same rules and regulations being applied all over the world. Started as an experiment in Europe. Though various countries had their judicial systems, anyone could appeal to the European court, I even say ICC and all that, and get their verdict. What is this? A world judicial system. Even in present Israel, there are a lot of turmoil because they wanted to do something about it, but they want to maintain the iron fist of the judicial system. That will happen the world over. No longer the judicial systems of various countries being applied to those countries, but it will be one system for the whole world. So, economy, all the same, economy is being taken over, one form of currency, digital for the whole world, and governorship just one. And this will have 10 rulers or 10 leaders. They say the world has been geographically divided into 10 parts. I'll just give you, you can take it or leave it. These are the 10 parts. Northern America together with Canada and West Indies, just one part. Whole of Latin America, South America, one part. All the African countries, another part. All of the Middle East, the fourth. All of Europe, the fifth. Countries, Russia, headed by Russia, belonging to the former USSR, the sixth. China, Mongolia, Tibet and all, 7. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, all those 8. All the Asian countries, 9. And Australasia, Australia, New Zealand, PNG and all, 10. So, those are the 10 roughly. So, there will be 10 leaders for those geographical parts. So, when it says 10 kings, that means all males. In fact, in the past when I was doing this kind of teaching, I used to say Angela Merkel had to go from Germany because Germany seems to be the leader of the European section, and today she is not there. So, we do not know who, it may be the present person, it may be another person, maybe even somebody like Hitler would arise, we do not know. But all are 10 males, that is why it says kings. And for how long will they rule? In Revelation 17:12, an angel tells John, they will rule for 1 hour. That is not 60-minute hour, that means a very short time period. How short that is? Various people have made various calculations. Could be right, could be wrong. I do not know exactly how long, but all that we can be sure of is that it will be for a very short time period before the 3 rulers are removed for this world ruler to come. So, this part has been overlooked. Many focus on the ruler, world ruler, global ruler that is coming, that ride on that white horse, without focusing on the world government that is coming before that. So, we like to get to know about what our situation would be when that world government is in place. Very difficult. None of us will be able to know for sure the details. What we know is the whole world is being controlled by various people, not elected by the masses. You could see that happening during the so-called pandemic. People who were not elected were making decisions and the governments were following. the world over, through the media, using the fear factor, they manipulated the masses. And we could see how easily people could be manipulated. Even though they were very knowledgeable people, presenting the data, told not to do certain things because those could be harmful, they were ignored, and someone official will make an announcement without providing an iota of data, and people the world over listened and followed that. So that's how easily they could control the masses. Today, most of the things that were told at that time are being reversed. It was just an experiment to see how people could be manipulated or how the masses would listen to the dictates of the governments. People are talking about democracy, people ruling. No, people are being manipulated by a certain group of people who are laying the foundation for this global government to be established. After that only that ride on the white horse will appear. So this clip has gone a little longer than I thought, but because people are concerned, I'd like to say this little before I close. The author of the Bible is the only one who knows what would happen. God used people at different times over a period of practically 1500 years. People from various positions in the social strata. There were kings, there were priests, there were fishermen, there were shepherds, carpenters, all kinds of people living over a period of 1500 years have written many things, and all of them complement one another. Can you imagine if you get people from various strata, the judge, a prime minister, an actor, and an engineer, all kinds of people, a fisherman, writing various things over a period of even say 100 years, wouldn't they contradict one another? So this shows, even though people of various positions were used, the author was one single person. And the best way to ride over the situations that would be coming or minimize the harmful effects is to get to know that person properly. And that is not that difficult to do. The start is not that difficult. All he asks is to be honest. That's all. If I am honest, I will admit I am not perfect. I make mistakes. No one in this world can say they have not made mistakes. We all have made mistakes. We all have our limitations. So the first is admit that we have our limitations. We are not perfect. So be honest, acknowledge. Then the question is, do you like to be different, to be better, to be rid of those weaknesses? That is also important. It's one thing to acknowledge after admitting. It's another thing whether you really desire to be a better person. Some have tried, many had tried. Some, because of their willpower, have managed to overcome a couple of shortcomings, but in general still may not be that different to the person he or she was. So we need help. Therefore, tell God, yes, I know I am not perfect. I'd like to be a better person. I tried, I failed, even though here and there I succeeded. Can you please help me? If it comes from the bottom of your heart, He will reciprocate. So, that is that. And after that, please get a Bible and read at least chapters 5, 6 and 7 of the Gospel of Matthew, the very first book in the section called New Testament, chapters 5, 6 and 7, where Christ gives the essence of what God wants us to do, which we cannot, but we can ask His help and He will definitely help you. Also, as I told you, chapters 2 and 3 of this book of Revelation contain 7 letters that Christ Himself dictated. Those are the only things Christ dictated. What are recorded in the Gospels is what He preached and taught in general and what He did. These 7 letters He dictated. He said, write down. Please read them slowly, because there are certain things that He compliments. See whether those good points are in you. And there are certain things, well, He reprimands. And see whether those are also in you. In that case, tell the Lord, I want these things out of my system, out of my life. Tell Him that, and He will be pleased that you are honest. And then ask Him to help you to get rid of them. Even where the good qualities are concerned, don't be satisfied. Ask the Lord how to improve on them. You see, take a sports person. That person is not satisfied with the capability. The person keeps on practicing. Take a musician. The person keeps on practicing. Why? Always trying to improve. So, don't think just because there are some good qualities that Christ compliments, that is it. No, we all need to keep on improving. We are not there yet. Read those 7 letters and also the 5th, 6th and 7th chapter of the book of Matthew, and ask God to show you things that you are not all that clear about, and that way you will be able to get closer to Him, so that He will help you to be the overcomer over the challenges that would be coming very soon in this world. Whether they will be diseases, whether they will be plagues or pandemics, or whether there will be other kinds of challenges. You want to overcome them, that is the only way. You can try other methods, but you may fail. Also, there may be agnostics. Just throw a challenge to God. I know enough people who have thrown that challenge. If you are there, why don't you show yourself? I know one person who even said, I don't want to meet you after I die, I want to meet you when I am still alive, show yourself. And God revealed Himself. So, be honest, that's all He asks. Even if you think in your heart God does not exist, tell Him, I don't believe you are there. If you are there, why don't you reveal yourself to me? So, that is the challenge I want to leave with you. And in the next clip, we will look at what would lead to this global government to be installed the world over. Now, you know a global government is coming. Even if you don't know what the Bible says, looking at what is happening in the world, you can see it's no longer restricted to a country or even to a continent. It's happening the world over. So, it's a global government that is coming. The groundwork is being laid. Certain areas have been completed, but still there has to be some event or events that will ultimately cause this global government to be established. So, in the next clip, we will look at that. And I hope the little bit I shared would be helpful. to you all in some way. And my advice, even to those Christians or those who believe in God, this Creator God, just don't be satisfied with their spiritual state. Just because you go to a synagogue or a church or some religious place, call upon Him. Ask Him what you need to do to be victorious over the challenges that are coming. I hope you would do that, so we will experience the shalom that only He